Hey, Pro-Life Jen, this is Kristan Hawkins. Welcome to this How to Win This Week episode with the Exclusively Pro-Life podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about why the pro-life generation is winning. This is a question that is being asked a lot in the mainstream news media, and sometimes they don't even bother to ask us, and they're doing their own analysis. I find it fascinating, but I want to back up a little bit before we talk about why we're winning. And I think we need to look at what we need to do to win. After the Civil War ended, the question was what comes next. And, we can look through history to see that there was 99 years from the end of the Civil War to the signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You had this failure of the Reconstruction era, this Reconstruction movement. And I think this is a lesson in history that we can't gloss over. The truth is, seeing Roe versus Wade reversed is not going to be our victory. I think we're all honored to say that we played a role in seeing Roe versus Wade reversed, that we were there at the Supreme Court. I got to read the decision in front of everyone at the Supreme Court. But I don't classify that victory as ours because we can't rest. We can't stop as we enter this new Reconstruction effort. And we can't certainly say it's going to take 99 years between the end of Roe until we create a culture where abortion is unthinkable and unavailable. Our victory as the pro-life generation, as now the post-Roe generation, is what is going to come next. And in order to do this, we have to have perseverance. We have to have courage. And I think we will win. I do believe with all my heart that we are going to win. Because why? We're never satisfied. We're always demanding more, to the chagrin of every pro-life politician out there in America. We as pro-lifers are never just satisfied. You can't just vote for a piece of legislation and put the check by the box pro-life. We want you and we expect our leaders to do more. We will win because we're forward-looking. Everyone thought that there was something a little bit off her rocker about Kristan Hawkins 16 years ago when we launched Students for Life of America, and we started telling everybody we were preparing for post-Roe America, that we were going to build up an army of leaders to fill a huge vacuum that we saw happening throughout the country, where all the pro-life leaders and movements were focusing on Washington, D.C. and forgetting about the states and those who will lead the battle in post-Roe America. They don't think we're so crazy anymore. We will win because we're gritty. We never give up, no matter the lack of resources or the lack of experience that we may have. We stick with it. We will win because we'll be fast moving, that we're always responding to the crisis of abortion. We're responding to what's happening in the national narrative. No long vacations for those of us at Students for Life. Ask any of my employees. We will win because we will be innovative, that we will literally create things that have never been done before in our efforts to change culture and to measure that culture change. We are going to win, quite frankly, because we will work harder than everybody else. I was so proud of the team at Students for Life and the pro-life generation and our whole SCOTUS squad. Every single decision day from the Supreme Court, from the end of March until the end of June, because the Supreme Court has decision days where they announce in advance the days of release decisions. And some of the days are maybe days, and so you find out 5 p.m. the day before. But you don't know what decision's ever going to be released. And there was a lot of talk in Washington, D.C., because of security threats from the violent pro-abortion side, that the Dobbs decision would be released not on a day that's common. Normally, what we saw in June is the most controversial decisions get released at the end of the term, right before the justices go on summer vacation. But there was a lot of talk about releasing the Dobbs decision on a random day in April when the pro-aborts wouldn't be out there threatening the lives of our Supreme Court justices. So you can be sure that Students for Life and the pro-life generation was not going to let Roe versus Wade, the decision that's killed a quarter of our entire generation, fall without pro-life young people, without those who've literally literally survived the abortion gauntlet out there cheering it on. So every decision day from end of March until end of June, the Students for Life team was out there. And it was rain, sleet, it was crazy. Every day. We will work harder than everyone else to see our victory achieved, abortion made unthinkable and unavailable in our lifetime. I think it's hard though, as we get into our fights and as we do the daily work of changing culture, of starting groups on campuses, having conversations, hosting events to bring awareness to pregnant parenting resources, no matter what we're doing. I think it's hard though for us sometimes to measure the change we're making day to day, in real time, to measure shifts that are being produced, to also continue to sustain and build momentum when the fight we know will be decades long, and it's constantly influenced by external factors, or a politician that says something that's contrary to what we believe, but then says that they're pro-life, or something happening. I think this is why for a lot of folks, engaging in the political realm in the pro-life movement seems the most exciting and rewarding, because these are short-term things. These are elections that yield results and produce results immediately, and you can measure them. It's harder to measure culture change than electing a pro-life senator who will confirm a pro-life Supreme Court justice who will see the Constitution actually revered in decisions, and hopefully a pro-life law upheld. That's a much easier linear path to follow. But we know that politics won't be the driver to end the violence of abortion in our nation. I believe it's the passenger. Both are important because, as the passenger in my family, I can navigate a lot of things and I choose the music. But the driver is very important. And that driver is the transformation in the hearts and minds of community members that creates the momentum. We did not see a reversal of Roe versus Wade without 50 years of a pro-life movement. That's for 50 years was silent, we weren't silent about abortion. We were loud and we were proud to be pro-life. We made sure abortion was always talked about, even in places where people said, stop talking about abortion. We continue to create societal unrest on this issue. That's why the left always would say, abortion is settled. Roe versus Wade settled it. We don't have to talk about it anymore. They don't want to talk about the violence of abortion because they can't defend themselves, obviously, because they're defending killing babies, defenseless babies. We refused to be quiet. That refusal changed our culture and made our Supreme Court reverse itself, something that it absolutely hates to do. So what do we need to do to win? I think the first thing we need to do, and this is why Students for Life focuses on this with all of our time and all of the funds that are entrusted to us, is we have to cultivate an active, trained, and easily mobilized army across the country. Because there's a lot of different and important niches in the pro-life movement. There's supportive services. There's, industry impact where you're actually engaging on the sidewalks in front of the abortion facility, or you're monitoring the abortion facility and reporting them. There's public policy. There's all kinds of ways you can engage in the pro-life movement with your skills, with your talents, and your unique you, the way God made you. But we won't recruit the folks we need for all these different important places if we don't first find and identify and train up a whole army. This is what we do, that uniquely Students for Life does, that we focus on the pro-life movement, that no one else does, is finding that army to then send them out. We really find these, in the words of the pro-choice New York Times writer, foot soldiers of the pro-life movement. Absolutely, we do that. And we do that to expose the violence of the abortion industry, to promote nonviolent alternatives. We recruit this army to change the narrative, to have the hard conversations about abortion. At Students for Life, we measure everything we do in terms of number of conversations, number of conversions, and number of activations. And all of the programs that this $20 million entity produces and creates every year all have goals surrounding conversations, conversions, and activations. And the other reason we recruit this army, the third reason, is to elect public officials, office holders that will actually be pro-life, to advocate for the passage of good pro-life laws, laws that will significantly save lives and move the needle closer to zero. Recently, there was a documentary that was just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. I think it's called Front Lines or Battle Lines, one of the two. Battleground, sorry. You would think I would know if I was featured in it, but I haven't gotten to watch it yet. But there was a documentary that premiered at Tribeca that followed myself, my friend Marjorie Danfelser from Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, and Teresa Pokoviak from formerly Pro-Life San Francisco, now Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. And this pro-choice documentarian, this producer, contacted us and asked us to get an inside glimpse of the pro-life movement. And for a year and a half, she followed us around, went to the National Pro-Life March, went to our National Pro-Life Summit. By the way, have you registered for the National Pro-Life Summit? It's coming up this January in Washington, D.C. Yes, we are still holding it because the Pro-Life March is still happening. Absolutely. So make sure you register at prolifesummit.org. So she did this whole documentary. And once Roe fell, she has been the person to interview in the pro-abortion media. New York Times, Yahoo Entertainment, Huffington Post, all these places have been interviewing this pro-choice producer because I think it's safer to talk to her because she's one of them versus us. And they keep asking her, how are these people winning? How did they see Roe reversed? You were inside the pro-life movement. And so there's been a lot of really great articles written about our strategy at Students for Life, our strategy within the pro-life movement. And they are so much fun to read, those who advocate for abortion trying to figure out how we've won and how we're going to continue to win. How do we produce cultural change? That thing I said earlier that's so hard to measure. The quotes they make me laugh every single time. I absolutely love them. There was one article that the Battleground producer was just featured in. It's called it's from The List. And the article goes on to say, it quotes Cynthia, the producer, saying, she was initially shocked to find so many people engaged in the pro-life movement, especially given the pro-choice movement's apparent monopoly on college-age voters. With organizations such as Students for Life, Hawkins and other organizers are quickly creating the, quote, next generation anti-abortion movement's foot soldiers, much to the surprise of pro-choice advocates. I love these articles because these articles prove that we are, in fact, making progress and we are on our way to ultimately winning, that we're changing culture, that they themselves recognize that there's something to having conversations with those who disagree with us, converting hearts, and activating those who agree with us to get active in the pro-life movement. Our strategy is super simple. It's not like something that it should take a rocket scientist to figure out. But apparently they're having a hard time in the pro-abortion movement doing that. But that's how we're going to win. We're going to keep having conversations. We're going to keep converting. We're going to keep activating. We're going to keep building up these, what do they call it? Foot soldiers for the anti-abortion movement. And we will win. And hopefully, and our prayer is that we win soon, where we see abortion made unthinkable and unavailable throughout our nation. And I believe we can do it because we will be gritty, we will be fast moving, we'll be innovative, and quite frankly, we're just going to work harder than them.